Hey, it's Mirna from Trainer's Toolbox. Welcome to the Trainer's Toolbox podcast, a place where you can discover practical and effective tools and tips to make your workshops more insightful, engaging, and memorable. You are at the right place if you're looking to become the best trainer you can be and design truly impactful learning experiences. Ready? Let's dive in. Training follow-up is one of the smartest, most effective tools we have as a trainer to make sure we achieve two things. One, to make learning actually last longer. And two, to make sure participants really truly act on and implement their learning after the workshop. Of course, both of these are very dependent also on our learning design and the quality of our workshop, and especially the closing and the end of our workshop. But they can be very much strengthened and bulletproofed through follow-up, quality smart follow-up. And in fact, they should, because rarely will a workshop be enough to achieve permanent learning if we don't also design impactful follow-up. Now, for follow-up to make sense and to be important, first, it's really important that your workshop is actually good, meaning that the people actually do learn things and that things are clear and memorable and captivating for them, and that they truly leave with some new insights that they reached in an active way and that they were memorable. If that's a part of workshop you're still not 100% sure you nailed, consider joining me at Train the Trainer. It's a course on which we really build strong foundations of training design and training delivery, and really you learn how to nail making workshops memorable, impactful, active from all the different aspects. If you feel that part is something you already have covered, it's time to look into how to strengthen the follow-up as well. Now, I'll share 5 different tips or 5 different ideas that we can integrate into our follow-up. But I cannot overestimate enough how important it is that we approach follow-up in the same way as we approach training design, and that is in a goal-oriented way. What was actually the goal of my workshop? What do I need participants to remember, implement, act on after the workshop, and in which specific way, within which timeline, with what duration? Is it more about quick action? Is it more about slow but continuous action? This is going to all depend on our learning goal. So the 5 tips I'm sharing today, they're 5 independent approaches and tools. You can combine multiple of them or even all of them in your follow-up, but please don't use them in a way to throw them in randomly, but really think, how do they truly support my training design? How do they truly support my learning outcome? And how can I incorporate them in a meaningful way to support all that? Yeah, with that in mind, let's start. One of the quickest wins, one of the easiest, but also most impactful and most relevant ways of building stronger follow-up in training is building some sort of accountability. It can be accountability system or simply also accountability buddy. Now, it works better if there is a system as well. Nothing beats accountability in terms of, people wanting to actually act on things that they have in mind. Of course, there are other things that matter for follow-up and for people to truly implement their knowledge. One of these things is motivation. One of the things is clarity on what should they do next and the plan they have. But ultimately, what supports it the most is accountability. So what kind of accountability you can build really depends on your context, where you're doing the workshop, the goal of the workshop, and where is area of your influence in terms of that system and accountability. But some of the great ways can be to build accountability within the team. So it's really something that stretches through the whole team where people are accountable to each other. Another way we can think about manager accountability. So in some way, connecting this new knowledge to people's goals, work goals, performance goals. This is really powerful way if we are talking about work-related training. And then also there can be a way of building peer support with their colleagues from work, with somebody who they're not even necessarily very collaborating with, or with someone who they are collaborating on a daily basis. Depends on which skill we worked with and what we wanted to achieve. Some other ways we can build this is through buddy pairs, literally to put people in buddy pairs for throughout the course or at the end of the course or both, where they then follow up on each other's progress. It's even better to do this in groups of 3, So if one slacks a bit with accountability, there's still enough system to hold each other accountable. Or we can keep it related to coaching, so following up with some sort of coaching that also provides accountability. Or we can even keep it related to personal life, where we connect with them for accountability with their partner, spouse, friend, someone like that. The important thing with accountability is that we actually do encourage them to truly keep each other accountable, that they don't, that they don't slack, that they keep pushing each other, and that they take this as a true commitment. Very often it's easier for people to be accountable to others than to themselves, and committed to others than to themselves. That is why this system can work really well, and I would highly recommend using that one as one of the most basic ways of ensuring the training lasts. The second thing that is very important, and it speaks to that clarity and motivation, is simply an action plan. And that is something that ideally we will tie into our workshop already, and that we will have at the end of the workshop, where they'll be building a very clear action plan. Now, the most important thing in building the action plan is through that they get clarity of next steps. Because what we want to avoid is them being in any sort of dilemma or having decision paralysis or stalling because they need to make a decision how to act on this. We want them to have 100% clarity. What are my steps? What is my action after this workshop? But that is not enough, right? So it's very common that at the end of the workshop we'll set a goal or action plan that's fairly quick and straightforward, but it's very rare that we truly give it enough of thought and space and steps to developing that goal and action plan further. So already setting the goal and any action plan is useful, but what really helps is if within that action plan we also set when specifically will we work on that. If they commit it to their calendar, but equally important, if they really build clarity, where does this new action fit in their work, in their life, that when is really, really important. Another thing that we want to build in to support the action plan is thinking of obstacles. What are the obstacles that they might encounter in fulfilling these actions? What might be the traps? Why didn't they succeed in making this change before? What was preventing them? And how will they mitigate these obstacles this time? With this, we're also stepping in almost in a bit of coaching, but it can just be a self-reflection question that we add at the end of the training or right after, as long as we build accountability for them to also truly answer that question. And then the third aspect we might want to do to bulletproof our action plan, apart from giving it time, reflecting on obstacles, we also want to have them reflect on resources. What are the different things that they can use to support this plan? What are the things that they still need to get as a resource to support that plan? Basically, what we want to build through these three things, through giving them set a clear time when will they act on this, not a timeline like a deadline, but at which moment of time will they be working on this? That is our question. And then reflecting on obstacles and how to mitigate them, and in reflecting on resources they have to support each other. What we want to achieve with all of that is basically for their action plan to go as frictionless as possible, that they have nothing else left to prepare, that they have nothing else left to, in some way struggle with, decide on, think about, that they have 100% clarity that really sets them up for success within that action plan. So do take a moment to think. Feel free to pause the podcast. Take a moment to think, what can you still strengthen and bulletproof in the way that your participants set their action plan? Do they need to set also clear time chunks when they're working on this? Do they need to consider obstacles more? Or do they need also to set a little bit of that resources and strengthen these resources? Now, tip number 3. I know I'm changing quite suddenly between very different strategies, but I hope you can think of a combination that will work best for you. Approach number 3 is really trainer-led designed follow-up. This is probably the most effective from the 3. Trainer or coach could be as well, but that's probably most effective of all the follow-up methods I'm mentioning, but it's also in a way most expensive. when you agree to a training, rarely will you design it with a big follow-up process in mind. For me personally, often to design that follow-up into a training, I seek to work with like bigger number of modules, right? So most of the courses that I design, especially on Happiness Academy and on Trainer's Toolbox, where design is fully under my control and I don't need to negotiate it with anyone, I will design courses that have between 8 and 12 modules, usually happening weekly. And this will, in a way, be designed that will already create a lot of follow-up in itself, because we will keep reconnecting between different modules, and there will be much stronger impact on memory and on people actually implementing already some of the learnings. But that's more the topic of design than follow-up. If we're talking strictly about follow-up, whenever the course or the workshop ends, some of the ways that trainer can design that follow-up. One way is a meetup. Organizing that meetup that's maybe, half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour long. That's maybe like for longer courses, I'll do such meetup roughly 1 month after we finish the course, because throughout the course we will work on weekly basis. And then when we end, I'll give them a month of a break to really be a bit challenged on implementing their goals. And then after a month, we will reconnect to discuss a little bit again. How is it going? What did they, let slip, and how can they bring it back, and so on. And that feels like a good period of time. But if you have a single one-time workshop or one-time course, maybe you want to build such meetup sooner, like after a week or 2 weeks. Again, this really depends on your design and learning goals. But that meetup feels really powerful because people really reconnect with the topic and learnings and others. And also within that format, they protect the time and space for that reflection. And you have enough of time to really evoke again main learnings and to find any pitfalls that happened in the meantime. So for me, that's one of really go-to things for a bit bigger courses, or full 2 days courses or longer courses with more modules. It feels like one of the most effective ways. But there are also many lighter ways if this doesn't work in your context, or you can also combine all of them together, of course. One of them is several weekly emails as a follow-up. And I say weekly because from my experience, that showed to be kind of the best rule of thumb, not to overwhelm people, but to remind them often enough. So again, for bigger courses, often I'll seek to design 5 follow-up emails delivered weekly. In these follow-up emails, I will not bring in any new content or any new models, but I will remind them of their main insights and reflections and encourage them into more action, and maybe again invite them to reflect on, accountabilities, a system they have in place, what is working, what is not, obstacles they're encountering and how to deal better with them, resources they have and they might be lacking, how to strengthen them. So kind of in a way keep reconnecting them in a bit light and non-overwhelming way with the main things that they encountered, and just following up through kind of a bit of coaching questions on the main things that they might get stuck with. So partially it serves as reminder to evoke their memory and insights again, and partially it serves as that nudge towards implementation. And then again, based on the goals of the workshops or on the course, I can plug in these into more reflective or more theoretical related to what we discussed, or more action oriented. Again, that will always depend on the goals of the course and how the course is designed. Within that trainer-led follow-up, apart from meetup and emails, we can think of many other structures as well, but one of them can also be in the shape of short videos. In my experience, it's very individual and contextual how much a person or a group is inclined to watch a short video that you send them, because it really depends on their work culture and group culture. And so I would say emails with short reflection questions and quick reminders and tips are more bulletproof in sense that they will actually see them, especially if you make it clear that's coming and you invite them to look for them. Yet videos can go a little bit deeper, right? They can evoke a bit more vivid memory of the main insights and the whole learning experience, and they can be really insightful and also more emotional in a way. They bring in more with themselves. So I would consider also following up with short videos. In some courses and models, I'll build that by having 5, again, short videos delivered weekly. For me, the winning combination is really to combine these three, having a meetup after a month and 5 weeks of weekly email with a short video in it. This will, of course, depend also on my resources and how much of these things I can build. So this is something you have to integrate in the course from the very beginning. And then if it's question of budget and time and so on, you might not decide to do it. But you always want to think with that balance between what is the investment of also your time, but also participants' time, how likely are they to follow through, versus the bulletproofness of that follow-up. Because of course, ideal follow-up would be like for a year, every week, a quick reminder or something like that. But we're not going to build that for every course. It's not realistic. We really want to think what is the right balance for us. But we do want to plan also some trainer-led follow-up if that's at all possible in our context. And then we still have 2 tips to go. Tip number 4 is to incorporate some microlearning add-ons. And this is different from delivering, for example, videos where we remind them more of the course. Here, I mean really, again, the format can be visuals or articles or videos or emails. But the point of this is I'm actually bringing a bit of new insights and tools and knowledge or perspectives over the issues. If I'm doing this, I'm bringing it in very gradually, and I'm ensuring it's reconnected with previous learning, and on the way I remind them of previous learnings, because then that also makes my education quite brain-based and kind of strengthens the learning and the motivation. But I'm also bringing in a little bit of new. So I don't commonly do this as a follow-up to a course, but some of the scenarios where I would consider doing this would be especially if there is a lot of different perspectives we can take on the same tool that we were discussing. For example, if we explored one type of meditation in the course or visualization, and on the course we did it in a certain way, and then I invited them to try it out in their real life after, in this microlearning add-on, I might add on some further variations of the same. Like, here is how you can make it shorter version. Here is how you can make it version that's more focused around one aspect of it, and so on and so on. So in a way, I'm extending the learning, but I'm not overwhelming with totally new content, but just kind of plugging in something new smoothly and just giving them more space to explore. This is especially valuable if I worked with the content that takes a lot of time to integrate and actually understand, and that it takes more application in real life in order to be understood. And we didn't have so many modules and so many opportunities to explore that together. So then here I want to offer them some extensions and answers and add-ons for situations where they actually encountered some obstacles, or maybe they needed a bit different variation that would work better for them. And with that, I keep bringing that new thing in. This could very much be combined with all the other, action plans. You could tell them right away that's coming and when, and they could incorporate it in their action plan. It could be combined with trainer-led follow-up and videos. So there are many ways of actually playing with this and combining all together. Which leads me to my last point, my final point, number 5, which is all about systems and motivation. And here I just want to say, this is maybe a bit more of a zoomed out view on all tips I shared before, but it's about thinking not with the tool in mind, like should I create accountability or clarify their action plan, or should I make it more trainer-led, or should I add in some new micro-learning? Instead, think about your goal and then think, how can I create motivation from them to really implement it? And how can I create a system for them that makes it easier for them to put this in practice? And here you can also think about emotions with which you end the workshop. You want to think about how you end the workshop with projecting into the future, and how can you build clear timelines, accountabilities, and different things to support them. But ultimately, the important thing to think here is, how am I creating both? How am I creating not just the motivation, but also a system? And then also system will not be enough if there is no motivation. And then system can be accountability or their own plan that they designed and we just supported them with, or it can be more trainer-led system, but it needs to go hand in hand with that motivation. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to share it, like it, you know the drill, comment on it, and subscribe to the channel. And I do want to invite you for one more learning experience for which subscriptions are open these days, and that is the Trainers Conversations. Trainers Conversations is a small, closely knit community on Trainers Toolbox of 22 trainers and facilitators, very international. We meet online every month for 2 hours call. And in Trainers Conversations, one of the things we do often is discuss on topics like this. So it's not so much about, having me talk about them. It's more about having the chance to exchange best practices on topics such as follow-up and any other training-related topic with experienced fellow trainers and facilitators, and get their ideas and tools and also a bit of motivation from them. Apart from being a way to keep on learning about all these topics and exchanging with the community, Trainers Conversations is also a way to extend your learning throughout the whole year and to keep strengthening all the insights, because it provides that continuity of being a member for a year, meeting on a monthly community call to learn and exchange together, and also attending quite a few masterclasses that I deliver on similar topics like this, but going deeper and going more practical. So in a way, it's a perfect follow-up to any course and any learning that you do as a trainer when you want to bring in more of knowledge into practice and work with all these tools and keep improving your trainings throughout the year in a gradual, easygoing way. I hope you will at least check it out and maybe even join me there. The link is in the comments, and signups are always open at November for the upcoming year. So if you're listening this in November, make sure to claim your spot in time. And if you're listening it later than that, well, check. Maybe if you're a couple of days later, signups might still be open. But if you're later than that, I would invite you to also potentially sign up for a waiting list for next year, because that's the best way to get your ticket in and become part of this community. Thank you for staying with me till the very end. Wish you an amazing day ahead. Thank you for exploring this topic with me. I hope you found some exciting ideas and valuable tools that you will use already today. Remember, they only work if you put them in practice, but then they make all the difference. If you enjoy Trainers Toolbox podcast, do leave a rating and review. It does mean a lot. And if you haven't done it yet, click on the links in the episode descriptions and discover free materials and valuable resources to dive in deeper. See you in the next episode or at Trainers Toolbox newsletter.